Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's last session. Please put your hands together for our next speakers, Vlad and Tharanga.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys had a really great conference day, 2 days, and surely we did. We had a really great time. This is the third time I'm presenting in Tech Days, and it's always been like a pleasure and a privilege, and I'm truly humble about being able to come here and present. Our session topic is integration without aggravation, best practice for Business Central. For the next 90 minutes, we'll be looking into two paradigms of Business Central integration. First part would be how we're going to do the traditional way of using AL. The second part of the presentation would be about how we're going to do this in a more modern way. Before we jump into session, let me introduce myself. Since we don't have any AI kind of things in our slide, I thought about adding a picture which created from AI, at least relevant to most of the topics here. So I'm a lead technical consultant at Theta. Theta is based in New Zealand, one of the largest Business Central implementation companies there. Even though I live in New Zealand, Auckland, I'm originally from Sri Lanka, and I'm a co-organizer of Business Central user group in Auckland. And I'm a 9-time MVP for the Business Central as well. I want to share something interesting. So this is our Auckland user group. We run this every month at Microsoft, and we started a few months ago, and it's growing really nicely. And if any of you, this is open invitation, if any of you are traveling to New Zealand for sightseeing, and if you're specifically in Auckland, just buzz me, and we'll have a catch-up. And if you're lucky, it might be the day that we are having the user group, so I'll invite you to the user group as well. So today I have Vlad with me.
Yeah, so I see that the audience, when you start talking about New Zealand, they say expecting that you get a ticket, like a free tickets here on the table, but not. Yeah, but we absolutely welcome you guys in our mainland, and wherever you are there, just catch up and ping Tharanga. He will absolutely will help you. So 2 years ago, we've been on this stage, but like Tharanga dropped me, he didn't get a visa, and I'm actually making a big surprise for him, so he's presenting by himself today. Come on. No, it's a bad joke, but okay. My name is Vlad. I am working with Tharanga many years, probably 18 years in NAV, BC world. I always looking for some challenges outside of BC. So actually, if you guys touch in any kind of technology outside of BC, ping me. I will be absolutely keen to jump on and try to contribute with you on your GitHub projects on this. Yeah, where is the clicker? Cool. So today's we will try to explore some integration scenario. And our external service would be like vet appointment clinic. I recently get a dog, first time in my life. It's a shame, like in 40 years old, I can get a dog. So, this kind of inspired us to see how the daycare, the pet daycare services works, how they can manage and communicate, and specific challenges that like any, like locally, there is plenty of different vet services, and they had like different ways how they wanted to communicate with you in terms of the appointment for your pets. It's probably not like absolutely real close to production scenario, but like we've seen a lot of beer cases, and because we are not like big fans of the beer, we decided to go with this one. Go for it.
So if the integration is a puzzle, especially Business Central integration is a puzzle, I would say that this puzzle is with the 5 pieces. Main 5 pieces are setup, trigger, mapping, request, and response. Once you have all these pieces in place, in the correct places, in a correct way, you will have complete integration. for the next part of the session, what we are going to do is we're going to take each of these pieces, which is very valuable for this integration to be working and successful. So we're going to take these pieces and analyze why it's important and how we're going to implement that in BC. So the first piece is setup. In this piece, we are mainly focusing on collecting information from the admin users or the power users. In this piece, we are trying to collect information about the service connections, like the endpoint, external endpoint details, or the authentication details, like what's the username, what's the password, and how we're going to authenticate, what are the types of authentication methods. We want to collect this. Not only just collecting them, we want to validate them. We don't want to run into a place where when we try to do the integration, the connection details or the username authentications are not working. So we want to validate that part of it. And then we don't want to build an integration where we can't control integration. When to stop, when to enable, we want to have that kind of mechanism as well. So how are we going to implement this? In a normal or the old-fashioned way, what we normally do is we create a table, we create a setup table, and then we put those fields in there and then ask the user to go ahead and fill this information. But that's the old way of doing it. The recommended way or the best practice would be using assisted setups. So that user will be guided throughout the process, and relevant prompts will be prompted, and you can do the validations on the run as well. So user won't miss any details while they're filling out. They will know exactly what needs to enter, and when they click next, it will ask the next question, and they can do that. Now that part is correct. Now how about managing these connections? I have seen many partners, including us in the past, we were building integrations and we have different modules. Now different modules have different endpoint details. And we have set up tables for all of these and set up different setup pages. Now the admin users has to memorize, like for this integration, we want to go to this page to enable the integration. For this integration, we need to go to this page. That's the old method. The correct method would be to use the service connection, which is the centralized place for external endpoints. So you will have all the external endpoints in one place, and user doesn't have to memorize it. You just open the page, all the endpoint details will be there. You click it, and then you can open the page, and you can go through the process. So that's the beauty of the service connections.
Yeah, so the next big thing is triggers. And actually, that's a biggest mistake. For us, we had like this challenges a lot. And we had an interview with Microsoft recently that said that the biggest mistake that partners are doing in terms of integration is actually trying to trigger and initiate the call to external service when a transaction is still open, when there's plenty of tables is locked. And let's say it's 95% of the cases like this, where this actually happens. So we wanted to like focus on it specifically because on this stage, we wanted to do a few things. We wanted to understand where is our data set, on which state of the business process we had enough data set to communicate with external service. We wanted to make sure that this data set is validated, so everything is prepared for the external service to be called. So even if we are not really building the whole body of the request or like authentication, we just wanted to do the validations out of it. And the last, which is this important part, is make sure that any kind of business transaction is completed, committed, before we initiating anything within the external service. That's two different systems. There is no way you can like match them all together into one single transaction. You start something, let's say if you're in the middle of posting routine, you subscribe to on post warehouse shipment, send the call to your shipment provider, made a consignment with them, get back the response, something happens back, one system in one state, another system in another state. Full stop. And we make these errors every day. So to be able to, in a best way to mitigate this is build up your integration using an instrumentation within the Business Central that enables you to do async calls. And we found that the job queue is a perfect instrument for it. So wherever we want to, inside of the business process, to trigger something that should be going outside, we will be scheduling job queue. That's it. We're making sure that the job queue entry is in sync with the business transaction. So if everything will be rolled back, the job queue entry will be rolled back. So there is no request potentially going anywhere else. And that can give you like a lot of bonuses. Like you have an automatic retries. You can schedule them. You can like build some kind of queue. So we found that that's a perfect instrumentation for it. Yes.
Okay. So the next one is the mapping. Mapping is basically you transform and prepare the data set for the integration so that you can call the external party and pass this data set to the external party. It's simple as that. For that, in Business Central, we have a couple of helpers or wrappers, I would say, to support this. And Business Central support JSON and XML format. And recently, Microsoft released really nice JSON helpers, which we can use. And the other option is leveraging data exchange definition. This is mainly if you want to give the users the ability to change the payload. If you think that users are capable of doing this, and also you feel that in the down the line, the integration might change, the payload might change, and you don't want to make code changes, then you can use the data exchange definition. But it comes with a price, because integration framework or the data exchange definition framework cannot do a full complex XML exports. So you might have to write code again. And it might be tricky if you go down that path. So make sure that you actually think really well before you go into that path. And the third one is use interface to manage versioning, which means that integration is actually agreement between two parties, saying that, okay, this is the data set, this is the payload I'm expecting, this is my endpoint, and if you want to call my endpoint, you need to make sure that it matches. But in the down the line, the partner might be saying that we want to change some fields, and we will have 3 months to do this, and after that 3 months, we're going to actually deprecate the current version. So how are we going to handle that? So the best practice would be using interfaces in Business Central. So what we normally do is we wrap our integration through an interface, and we have a version for that. And then if the partner comes back and says, okay, we want to change something, we said, okay, all good. We don't touch the existing integration. We create a different implementation of the interface, which allows us to move forward without breaking the existing integration, and allows us to switch back and forth if we want to do the testing or something like that.
Yeah, so for the interfaces, few things. So build up an interface for the high-level functionality of your client. Don't try to like, okay, I'll have an interface just for a mapping. It's fine that you will sometimes will have a duplicated code, but it will be like pain really to try to trace if you had like a mapping versions, but maybe the URL is the same, the version is the same. Wrap the whole external service client into an interface, and then do the implementation, even if with the copy code cases. I wanted to add a little bit regarding data exchange definition. We had a product in Tita that we do integrations, and it's partially built on the data exchange framework. And we had one customer that actually go in and actually modify the schema for his needs. Everyone else, as we implemented it, they just sticking with it. And there are rare cases where the mapping is changing, so I strongly recommend you will save your effort, save your time for your customer and money for your customer who just hard-coded it using AL. So in our case, we do build our demo one using interfaces as well, but it's really, really easy one. So you can see that I just had a simple interface where I'm requesting an appointment. It's everything that my external service is doing, and I'm passing the record that, okay, that's my parameter for this. I'm making sure that it's as generic as possible. I'm not trying to build certain specific parameters within this interface. I'm allowing the record to be interfaced, so then any kind of future changes to it will allow me to pretty much not touching the interface, but extend the scope of parameters into it.
So the next one is the request. I think
that's
Vlad?
me.
Yeah, I think that's you.
Okay, cool. Yes, so we do have a lot of instrumentation in Business Central to code external services. I actually know 4. It would be interesting, like, if someone else knows 5. That's for sure. So what we wanted to say is that it's absolutely capable. It's covering 95% cases, maybe not 100%, but we wanted to make sure that you guys are using the right tool for the job. You probably can see that certain implementation takes more code if you communicate with it. If you just had a REST API, you can do it just in 1 line. So you don't need to, like, less code is less errors, how it's supposed to. And of course, we need to parse the response where we get the stuff back. Happily, we can read different formats in Business Central. It's not like something special. I'm pretty sure that most of you knows about it, but I definitely seen some of the people, and I did see in the code reviews where people like reading JSON as text and then start like imagining some kind of parsing techniques on their own. It gives me a little bit of mental health after it, but okay. So with the new version of Business Central, we now had a good wrapper for the JSON objects that you can directly access certain properties with types. And again, that's a big pain that was in past. I think I did 3 wrappers in 3 different extensions, 3 different versions before this happens. So it's actually a very nice API to access properties directly. You will have cases, for example, if you're taking like JSON where you looping through properties. For each fully support this. And of course, if you wanted to, you don't know which properties you get in a file, and you want to, for example, to loop through them and get them individually, that's a good way of doing this as well. So now, over to Tharanga for a little bit of demo.
Okay, I'm in BC, obviously. So what we want to show is that how this, we build a small extension, and it's basically we have puppies, and we want to connect to an external web service and schedule an appointment with them. Now, if you can remember, we had 5 pieces. First piece was setup. And I recommend that we should use the service connections. Now, if I go to service connections in here, it takes a little bit of time. I think it's a little bit slow today. So we have service connection called web appointment. And I go to web deployment, and it initially asks, like, what's the integration type? This is the interfaces that we have built. We have 3 implementations of this for this particular demo. And for now, for this piece of the demo, I'm going to use the HTTP client. And then I'll go to next.
Yeah, there actually was
Yep.
supposed to be
Yep.
a field there for asking for an endpoint and notification, but probably someone deploy some bad build.
Oh, that's fine.
We don't
so
need to ask
we take you through,
anymore.
and then we finish that. Now, if I go to this puppies, the new one that we built, any Formula 1 fans here? Oh, I can see a few, and probably you'll be able to make some connection with these names, and some of the birth dates reflect some memories as well. So I will go with this first puppy, and I feel that this puppy is not behaving well, he's not up to standards, he's not doing well. So I want to make a vet appointment and ask the vet why he's not behaving well and why his behavior is changed. So if I show you the appointment history, I don't have anything here, it's blank. Now when I click request vet appointment, what it does is, it will go ahead and create a record on the show appointment table. And then it schedule a job queue in the background. And this job queue will trigger integration to the external party. So that's the triggering point for our integration, not this action button or the creating the record, it's simply the job queue. So I will click request web deployment, and yeah, request is sent. Now if I go and check this, I already have this record. It's quite fast, so that's why. Otherwise, it should have blank date and time, and integration will update it back.
Yeah, actually on this point, I wanted to mention that because most of your integration would need to be asynchronous, you need to make sure that you communicate back to user saying what's happening right now. They will not get an instant feedback, so good practice is to do any kind of status fields, changing the visibility of the button, saying it's now engaged, or having something in a fact box, like in our case, that something is happening, something is scheduled.
And the other thing I want to mention on here is that we don't have any logs. We don't have a way to trace back what's happened in the integration. Only thing we can do is we can go back to job queues and find out what happened in the job queue level.
There will be no job queue, yeah? It just schedule and gone?
Yeah, so we can, yes. And it's kind of frustrating because if this works, it's fine. If it not, then we'll be in a position that we'll have to create sandboxes, we have to debug all of those because there's no monitoring available with this approach. If we want monitoring, we'll have to build everything from the scratch.
Yeah, so there is certain telemetry, of course, that will allow us to see any external calls that happens to a system, but of course you don't see like the body of the request, you just see an endpoint and when it happens. Is it all?
So with that, yeah, we have, Vlad, I think it's you to talk about the limitations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so awesome. And I think that you guys were showing us in your feedback for the question for this session that you like AL integration, that you think that it's absolutely capable, but it certainly have certain limitation in terms of how it can communicate. In New Zealand, we less have this problem. I heard here in Europe, you definitely have some customers that using very old legacy systems that have really strange formats and communication instrumentation. So yeah, it's still limited in this point. But another area of limitation is this scalability. And when I'm saying scalability, it's not like about the volume. We can drop huge volumes with Business Central Cloud. Thank you, Microsoft, for certain technical and performance updates. But wherever we're saying scalability is how this now affect the organization. Because in reality, yes, that's great. It can communicate with web appointment service. But in a real case scenario, organization wants to do something with it. They might want to like send an email to someone else when this happens. They might want to trigger another process within the organization that relates to this integration specifically. So this is where I'm saying the limitation of this scalability. You implemented it in AL. The only job it do is like one thing happen, it goes to one service, that's it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so with those scalability limitations, it's kind of a deal breaker. Because when you build integration, you need it to be scalable. You should be able to integrate more partners into it and connect to the more external endpoints. So is there any other possible options available, like any other patterns that we can use, which is already available in Business Central that we don't have to reinvent? One of the options is Webhook. I know some of you think, Webhook, give us a few minutes and we'll show you how we can use this technique quite well. Webhook is a real-time communication mechanism that allows like system A to announce something happened in their system to system B. So system B can react to that. This Webhook is not real-time. It's closer to real-time. In the sense, it's not like 5 minutes delay. It's like a 1 second or 2 second delay that you get a notification. Second point I have listed is at reduce resource consumption. How? In all integration method, what we did was we used polling method, where the system B, let's say that system A and system B have integration. system A generates those events. And system B has to come to system A and ask, knock on the door and ask, like, do you have anything new for me? Sometimes it has. Most of the time it says, no, I don't have it. System gets frustrated. Just the way that you guys come to a conference, you go home, you want to relax, but someone is coming, knocking the door and trying to sell you something. And then you get frustrated. The same way the system gets frustrated because it's using a lot of resources to answer these calls. So the asynchronous method is where that these two happens in two separate transaction scopes. When the webhook method delivers the payload to the system B, and then it dumps the payload there, it will not wait for the system B to process and give us a feedback. It simply says, hey, something happens, take it. If you don't, that's fine, I'm going to move on with my life.
Yeah, so from the synchronous communication point of view, the stuff that we discussed with you on a trigger point, it's not something that you need to enforce developers to make sure that they always need to use job queues. It's done there, out of the box. So the way how the webhook works is only triggers if the transaction is committed. So this is how you don't need to follow them and see how they actually implement in any kind of communication with external service. So another thing is very important is this loosely coupling thing. Can you guys light this if you know what is loosely coupling is? I think it's a buzzword or not. So someone can explain. There's 2 people, 3 people in a room, 4 people, but they don't have lights probably. Who can explain it? My understanding of this is we had 2 different systems, had 2 different life cycles of the systems. They evolve independently. Whenever we're talking about loosely coupling, we're trying to make sure that we are not tying 2 systems together so they can live separately. And they can mutate separately, break separately, and marry, hopefully, after all this. Where is my clicker? Cool. So I wanted to walk you through how the webhook works in general. I hope that most of you know, but that's really basic principles. Any webhook works the same way. So, oh, actually I had a lighter. Cool. So we had a which we call the consumer, someone who is interested in the stuff that happens in our system. So what consumer do, he's asking the webhook service to say, I'm interested in this, if you have something for me that, like, this is what I'm interested about, like this is type of event that I'm interested. So if you will happenly have any of this event in your system, please call me back. And this is my number, which is like a notification URL. So this webhook service had a catalog of all these subscribers, and he actively maintaining this catalog. So if in our source system or event generator, something happens, like in our case, a new appointment is requested, our webhook service takes care of looking for which parties are interested in this event, and in parallel they are sending this payload, which is about certain limited information about the event to external party. So that's in a nutshell how it works. In Business Central, we do have few versions of implementation of the webhook. Probably you heard about webhooks since, I think, 2000?
3 versions before, I think.
3 versions before, okay. And there was like this, we call it Webhook version 1. The way how it was designed is that every time when you as a developer creating page API, system registering the webhook for all the record event for this page. You probably didn't know about this before. I actually didn't know that every time when I'm creating an API page, this is what happens. And but the rest of the process looks similar as for the webhook button. We had a, oh, sorry, wrong button. We had a consumer. It sends a request to a subscription endpoint. our Business Central webhook creates a record in an API webhook subscription table, responding back, yes, I'm done with it. When something happens in the Business Central, like a new appointment, that's where interesting happens. Every time on global, insert, modify, or delete, what system do is for your beautiful API page that you created and you didn't know anything about, it goes reading this table and looking if someone interested in your record change. And then probably, in most cases, it's not. But if it is, this is where it creates a new record in API webhook table, webhook notification table, and then the background job picks it up and actually sends this to the external service. This model was great as a first implementation.
But it has limitations.
But it has huge limitations.
Yes, huge limitations. One of the main, go back.
Yep. We clicking together, yeah?
Yep. So one of the main limitations is only record events get become the webhook events. As Vlad said, every time you create a page, it goes and registers like, okay, this is something suitable for webhook, let's enable it. And once that is enabled, every time record insert, modified, or delete, it triggers it. It looks for a catalog for things that is not available or things that partner doesn't need to be implemented. And with that, that's come the big performance overhead on the global triggers. So if you have an extension or a solution which has hundreds of API pages for different entities, that means you are, without knowing, slowing down the tenant. And the other thing is, this can be actually not the limitation, this can be a workaround. You want the pages, but you don't want it to be enabled in the webhook, then you can make the OData API key as the composite key. So then it will not register it. And the other thing is the first version of this is every 3 days, the subscription expires. So whoever subscribed to it has to renew the subscription every 3 days. So this is going to be another problem. Sometimes some of the implementation doesn't have this kind of a capability of renewing the subscription every 3 days. So they want to leave it like subscribe, then leave it until they purposefully expire the subscription. There are a few other limitations on the bottom of the page screen. Those are like more of the technical one, where we can't use the system table for the APIs. And if you build the API pages as a query object, then this won't get triggered as well. So that these are limitations and also a workaround to stop these global triggers getting ringed every time something happens in BC. So I would say that Webhook version 1.0, do not buy it, do not use it for any of your implementations.
Yeah, and this is what Microsoft identified as well. That's why they bring second version of it. And I'm not sure if this is where you guys seen it before. That's a big change. The big change because it's, first of all, it's not defined by the page APIs. It gives partners full flexibility to create events for the webhooks pretty much anywhere within the business logic. It doesn't have a limitation of the performance overhead because it's not technically tied to any kind of record change. It's going within the code, but it's handled on a platform level. As soon as the business event is triggered on a platform, it generates a new record on the webhook system to actually send it to external service. Another limitation that we bypassing with this version is in our first version, we just was sending as a payload just the primary key of the record. That's it. Right now, with the business event, we do have options to support a little bit more payload within this request. Yeah, and actually, it's, as I said, like it's supporting a custom event, so any partners can build them. I wanted to show you how it works, pretty much the same as the previous implementation, but we had another endpoint to register this subscription. It goes to a different table. when in Business Central, the business event is triggered as a procedure. This is where this happens on a platform level. And to initiate this, system will create internal external event notification record for all the external event subscriptions. We didn't find any code unit that execute this. It's really like the data is presented for us to see what is happening there, but actual whole execution happens on the platform. So that's a big difference.
So, but there's an issue with this, I would see, because it's still preview. If you go to Microsoft Learn website and find out, it still says preview. And it only has limited number of external business events. Why is that? So we had this question, and we asked from Microsoft, the people who was actually looking after this implementation. So their reason was this to be in preview is Microsoft is currently looking for an option or a solution to deprecate these certain events without breaking the integration agreement. Which means that they're planning to push this forward. They think that this is going to be the future of how we integrate with the external systems, but they're currently looking for a proper solution to if the partner wants to deprecate one of these events, how they're going to do it. So that's the part that they are missing puzzle of that. And why only few events right now? Because Microsoft doesn't want to go back and change this when we go to GA in probably within this year. So they have only added very limited events which they think that won't change for the foreseeable future. But good thing is, we are allowed to do this. We are allowed to add business events as a partner, so we can easily add business events for that. So that's what we're going to show you, how we're going to do this. If you remember that at the start of the integration, this session, we had 5 pieces of the puzzle. Setup, trigger, mapping, response, and request. So now I want to go back to that same structure and see how we're going to do this. For the first one is setup. Do we need a setup? No. How we do the implementation? Only thing we need to do is we need to make sure that permission is there for the users who are subscribed into the business events. But if you go to Microsoft Learn, you will see like this kind of a lengthy article about how you enable business events. It's not required. We tested it, we checked with Microsoft, and they need to update the documentation because none of these are required to enable business events.
Yeah, so to make sure that these virtual events of business event working, you don't need to connect it to a Dataverse. You can just be by yourself in Business Central. It all works great.
Yes. And on the permission level, there are 2 things that you need to make sure. One is the subscriber, a user or a service account, should have external event subscriber permission set assigned. Otherwise, you will get a permission error message at the time of subscribing saying that this particular user doesn't have the permission required. And the second one is the same subscriber need to have read access to external business event definition table. That's all you need to do. And as soon as you complete that, the setup part of the business events is complete. Now comes the trigger. And Vlad's going to talk about that.
Yeah, so from a trigger perspective, right now, we finally need to implement the business events. So that's pretty much all we need to do. And because, again, it's basically by nature, it goes outside of the business transaction. So let me share my screen. I will show you how we're doing this, if this works. So in our case, where is our webhook implementation? Cool. So, actually, I have a slide for it, I think, yeah?
Yeah, you can do the slides, yes, it's much easier.
Sorry. Yes, so you need to create a new event category for the business event, so you extend an event category to bring your own It's just a categorization of the business events. Probably for your app, you'll be using this. Maybe for app and API level, you will be using this. Actually, it probably would be only for the app level. The next thing you need to do is actually define this business event. And you're doing this by creating a new procedure in your extension, which has certain metadata that required for the business event to be public. So which is like a name of it. This exact name is used by subscriber to subscribe to this event. You need like a meaningful name for the users. This is more for
Power Automate.
Or some kind of external solutions that potentially wanted to read the definition of your event and present it to a user that's doing some low-code stuff. Or actually, we can talk about AI right now. Your MSP server potentially will be able to read some of this. And a little bit of description, of course, and our custom event category. One more thing that you need to do here, and it's quite interesting one, is this required permission. Tharanga already talked to you regarding what permissions the subscriber needs. But the way how this works is very interesting. The subscriber user send a call to Business Central saying, I wanted to subscribe to this business event. And what system do in a moment of subscription, it's checking if this user, which subscribed to it, do have this permission. Because after this moment, Business Central will happily deliver him all the information that he subscribed to. And this is exact moment when, from a permission and security standpoint, we wanted to make sure that external service really have an access to the data that we are exposing. We wanted to expose to a service. Cool, so as soon as we have this, of course, we need to call our business event, just a regular call as any other procedure. From a best practice point of view, the only thing is to join all your business event in a separate code units. So then you know what is your business event in one place, and then you call in this code unit and the procedures from pretty much anywhere within the transaction. Doesn't matter. It will act similar as a job queue. So it will only be triggering this triggering this event only if the transaction is committed. If something will be rolled back, there will be no external service code. Yeah, I think that
You pretty much covered it, yes.
pretty much covered. Yeah. So over to Tharanga, he wanted to show you how we can use an API for business events, how we can subscribe it from Postman.
So this is my Postman application, and I have authentication set up, and I'm not going to go into details about that. So before I go into external events or any event, I want to find out what are the endpoints that are available to subscribe or understand business events. So I have the base URL, tenant ID, the environment name, API/version 2.0, and $mark. So once I do this, I get the payload back, and I can see there are two particular endpoints available for the external events. One is called external event subscription, and the second one called external business event definitions. So what are the difference? Let's find out. So what I do is I want to find out what's the external business event definition means. So now the URL get a little bit different. I will have API Microsoft runtime version 1.0 external business event definitions. Everyone can see the screens, right? Like, okay, good. Now once I do this, once I make the call, I get a payload again here. This time, it brings me all the business events available within Business Central. Whether it's a custom business event added by partner, doesn't matter. It brings all the events, Microsoft and partners. So if I scroll further down, I think bottom of the page, we have the custom business event that we created. In here, you have the app ID. App ID means the app that implements this particular business event, and the name of the event, event version, payload, what's the payload will be look like, display name, description, the category which we created with the extending enum, and what's our app name, who's the app publisher, and the app version. So it brings all the information about the business event and also the app. Now, before we going into the business events, that custom business event that we created, I want to focus on this customer blocked one, because that's the easiest one to showcase you guys. Now, if you remember, we had two endpoints. One is the external business event definition, and the second one was external event subscription. So I'm going to do a request to this, and I can see it's a blank. It doesn't have any subscriptions yet. Now, I want to go and create a subscription. Now, I have this payload. So you can see the endpoint URL is external event subscription. And I'm passing the company name, which is the company that I'm interested in to subscribe into. So if the tenant database has multiple companies, you can simply, and you're interested in all of these companies, then you can simply remove this company name parameter. Then it will subscribe to all the companies. But in my case, I only want to subscribe to one. And then you can pass the company ID, event name, app ID, notification URL. This is a dummy endpoint that I have. This is the endpoint that I created to monitor what my request would be look like. And then client status. Client state is basically a token that you can pass it to the external system to validate. Now let me send this. Now I get an error. It says user does not have required permission for external business event customer blocked. I'm pretty sure I have all the permissions there. I don't even have to check. I'm 100% sure. So what's the problem? The problem is business events, even though your payload is incorrect, it does not give the error saying that your payload is incorrect and some of the payload elements are missing. It doesn't say that. It says the permission issue. So what was missing was the event version. You can get this event version and all this information with the business events. So you have the event version here. You need to get that and then put it here. Now I think that my payload is all good. Now I send the subscription. Now I have all the information back to me with the subscription details, like when it was created and who was created. All this information is here now. Now my subscription is created against the customer. Now let me go back to Business Central. I'll go to the customer, and then I'll pick this customer, which I was using for the testing as well, so I don't want to change it in the middle of the demo. So I will change this customer status to invoice to ship. And I go out of the record. Now if I go here, you can see that I have post request. Right now it's 12:19 a.m. in New Zealand. So if I go and inspect a little bit of this, the payload, header has a lot of information. Now on the body part of it, it has the company name, company ID, and the URL for the exact record, and the web client URL, and what's happened with the status. It's been now blocked for ship. Now this gives me all the details I want as an external system to react on it. If I want, I can call back BC Central and get the full details about this customer with this particular URL. Or if I don't want, I can simply ignore it as well. Now that's the part of where we creating the subscription. Now let's say that we run the project and we don't want to have the subscription anymore. That means we want to unsubscribe it. For that, you need two things. One is the subscription ID. How do you get that is like there are two ways. Either you run the list all subscription details method, or at the time of registering, it send you back the ID. You can store that, or And also you need to have an E tag for this. Now, if I have all of those information, I simply do is on the endpoint URL, external event subscription, open brackets, and put the ID. And on the header, I have if match and the E tag. And then I click send.
What about body?
Yes, good point. In the body, you need to pass a blank JSON object. Otherwise, it will give you an errors.
Don't ask why. That's probably why it's still in preview.
Yes. So now I deleted the request, and it says 204, no content. And let me go to this one and run it again. So it's blank again. So there's no subscription available for this particular database. And that's basically how the webhook works when you look into the API level. We'll be going into much more details about this in a different integration layer. Yep.
Cool. So thank you very much, Tharanga. Tharanga showed us how to do like this manually, but potentially you are talking about that this would be done from some kind of integration layer. We love integration layers, and I think that some of you guys were responding to our question, where are you doing your integration business logic? And even like most of you talked about AL, we do see that there are a few pro integrators in a room who's actually doing Azure integration services. I actually wanted to rerun this poll now, because probably some of you are not using the app. So can you light or hand who's doing AL only? AL only. Ooh,
that's
okay, no lights anymore. But like I would say 30% of the room? Yeah,
yep.
Makes sense? Cool. Who doing all the integration of Power Platform? No, not good. Who is doing only Azure integration services? Cool,
few.
One.
No, few. There's a few more there.
Okay,
so.
probably my...
You need glasses. Not just lights, just glasses.
Yeah. What we see is, even if the customer requirement starts to be small, every time, every new month, they come up with something new. So you're building your integration within AL, and then like in 3 months' time, they start to want some more. They wanted to have another system to communicate. They want to have like some kind of guy who is managing this. So in most cases, what we are trying to do is to introduce customer to like variety of options in the integration space. In terms of this conference, we will be more like looking into Microsoft offering for the integration services, and that's probably will be part of our demo. But webhooks is absolutely standard thing. Any integration layers do support some forms of webhook, and they will support the way how Business Central is doing this. Actually, some of our demo part is doing this on like still in Power Automate, but like using the HTTP connectors. So you will see that it's pretty much works in any space like this. So that was an interesting discussion regarding where to use the Power Automate in Azure application services. I think you've seen some of these slides for the last 5 years many, many times. We will not like bring you our perspective on this, but we did a lot of integrations. I was a big fan of Power Platform.
I'm not.
In terms of integration, I'm sure that you like love it.
We always had this argument at our company that Vlad recommend Power Platform, then I find excuses to not to use Power Platform, and then we always go to Boston like we presenting our cases, and most of the time I think I won.
Yeah, you do. What we found is like, yeah, there are certain technical differences, but the main thing is who will be supporting this. And if the customer do have like a small workload, they had really power users, they do want to use a Power Platform, they do have a person in the room who's like, yeah, sure, I will go to this run, I will rerun it. This is where probably you can be within the Power Platform only. But anything else, this is where Tharanga is definitely a winner. And especially like...
But most of the cases, what happened is, Vlad, the person who was saying that, okay, I will do the rerun, he's on the leave when this things go south. So then someone else has to do this.
Yeah,
so, yes, probably the partners.
Charge customer to go and help them with it. But like, I do see that another aspect where most of our integration now moving to Azure Integration Services is because of security. More and more our services do require strong IP filtering, the stuff that you cannot do in a low-code system or serverless system. So that's potentially like, I think most of our, just like integration transition from Power Platform to Azure Integration Services happens because of security. Cool, so let's do
another demo. Okay, so that's me. Yep.
Works.
I don't need any of those now, and I want to go to
Oh
Business
yeah,
Central.
I think it's my demo.
That's fine, I'll do it. So in Business Central, with the business events, we get a little bit of what you call monitoring capabilities. Not 100%, but I would say like it's closer to 80% or something like that. So in business events, you can find it. If you use the search, you will be able to find it as well, but we put actions here because it's easy for us to navigate through the demo. If you go and click on the business event subscription, you will be able to see all the subscriptions currently available. Right now, we don't have any subscriptions, so that's why you don't see anything. Now, let me go to Power Automate, and I have Power Automate flow, and I'm going to turn it on. This is why I don't like Power Automate. Now, I click that, but it doesn't show me whether it's been turned on or not.
It is.
It is.
You just need to believe, you know?
Yes. So I need to do a hard refresh. Now it says turn on, that's okay. Now, if I go and edit this one, and if I open it, this is changed.
What?
This is changed, that's fine.
No, it's just new designer,
yeah.
Which everyone hates, but okay.
So I'm going to go back to the old one.
That's the first step that you do when you open in the Power Automate.
Okay, this looks much better now.
Old school.
Yes, now if I open the connector, the trigger, the connector, I can see the environment name. I can drill down, come on. I can see all the environment names that I have. So in this case, I'm using TechDays. I can't use this one, this is my wife's tenant, so she will get furious if I play with that. Now, it will show me all the events here as well. So this is really good. If you are like a low-code user, this is really good because it gives you all the information. You don't have to memorize or have to do anything other than clicking this arrow button to drop down. So you click the appointment, and this is something optional. Company name, if you want to subscribe to all the companies in the database, you can keep it blank. Otherwise, you can select it. That's also a drop-down.
Actually, this was an interesting point why it's in the preview. When we were preparing this demo like a few weeks ago, there was no such property. Now it appears. So now you finally, from Power Automate, at least you can select the company that you are subscribing to.
So now, I won't go to the other parts of the Power Automate because we will be coming back to this particular flow again. Now, if I go to Business Central and refresh, if my connector works well, I should see one particular subscription. Yes, it's there. Now, in this one, we have user ID that who created this subscription. So one of the things that you notice is in the Power Automate, we are not, with Power Automate and with the Business Central connector, we are not allowed to use service-to-service authentication. So that means we need to have a named user for this. So in this case, my user account being used, and this is my user account details here.
Yep. We can show you how to bypass it.
Yes, we'll come back to that. And then this notification URL, this is the Power Automate notification URL that it will be getting called. So yeah, that's how you simply enable the Power Automate and then do the subscription. So let me go back to presentation.
Yes, so from mapping perspective, because you're sitting somewhere else, you have plenty of option to map your data from Business Central to your target system. Hopefully, not so complicated legacy. I don't know, what was it? EDI? No.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. Yeah, so, but definitely you have way more options in this space. And what we told you that like, business event is triggered just with the data that you define in a parameter. So probably wherever your integration layer is, you need to go back to Business Central using the, some kind of reference from your business events. Call back the Business Central API, fetch the data that you need for your integration. So there is no mapping, no nothing, no requirement for the data in BC. This is something that the external service should take care of. And from a communication point of view, of course, wherever you want, in Power Platform and Logic App, there are like more than 1,400 connectors that are able to communicate pretty much with anything. And that's not the topic of this conversation, but we had a friend who's like actually working on the team for Logic Apps, and that's an interesting challenge for him. Like every month, that customer come up and saying like, "Oh, you know, let's do this," and it's like random file drop process. From a response perspective, we using our favorite Business Central APIs to push the data back. So in case of our demo, we do create our web appointment API where any external service can call and update the information about the appointment. Cool. So
let's go back to the demo. Okay. Now I showed you bits and pieces of this webhook, like how to create the subscription and how the Power Automate connector works. Now let me take you through the end-to-end and then explain you how these work in the Power Automate. So for that, first need to do is go to service connections. If you can remember that we had different implementations of the integration. So the first part of it, we use the HTTP. But for this part of the demo, we want to use the webhooks. So it's next and finish. So now from this point onwards, when we create a new appointment, we are not using HTTP, we will be using the webhooks. Now, I'll go to my puppies. This time we'll get a different puppy. Okay, we'll get the this one.
Different Formula 1 driver. I never
Yes.
thought that they're hairy so much. Okay.
So for this one, we don't have any appointment yet. And what I will do is I will click this one, and then it will initiate a external business event, which will call the Power Automate, and Power Automate will take it over from there. So request web appointment for this. And now if I go to this, the data has been updated. Now let me see.
Can you show the business events notification?
Yes.
Yeah.
So data got updated. And now if I go to business event notifications in here and sort it, you can see that at 12:35 exactly now, the notification has been sent. And
Yeah, so you can see that there are retry counter, and this is basically the platform exposing us an information how it's execute the request to an external service.
yeah, this is where Vlad was trying his best to make some demo work.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, and if you want to have a log of how the subscription was subscribed, unsubscribed, and event notification, you can go to business event log, and it will show you like whether the subscription has been created, when it's been unsubscribed, when the notification is being sent. This is like a full picture of it. And now if I go to Power Automate, you can see like 11 seconds ago, a flow has been run. I'll go into that. So what we'll do is, we get details like sandbox environment name, the event. For the event, we are just passing the appointment system ID, and then this is the company ID. Let me click download. This is how the payload looks like. And see on the body, you can see all this information. I can make it a little bit bigger. Yeah.
Is there any payload?
Yeah, this is the.
Oh, cool. We had our appointment system ID.
Yes. Now, with this system ID, what we do is we use the Business Central connector action get record. Since I already know the actual system ID, I'm going in there, passing the system ID as a row ID, and it takes the record back to me, like full Business Central record. So it has all the records. Now I do the mapping part of it. So these the only two parameters that required by the wet appointment system. So I'm doing the mapping in the integration layer, pass it to the wet appointment endpoint, got the feedback saying that it's scheduled, and this is the appointment date and time. Based on this information, I'm going to go back and pass the record ID that I want to update, and then this time I'm passing the date time. So now the Business Central get updated. You obviously see that this is like for a demo. We don't have any error handlings or any other mechanism to implement the authentication, but this is to give you an update on how you can do this in the integration layer. But with this connector, there are like a lot of limitations, and Vlad is happy to show that on his laptop.
Oh yeah, buttons. Cool. So limitations.
You're gonna break my flow, okay?
What, sorry?
You're gonna break my flow and show it. Yeah?
Of course.
Okay.
So yeah, the first limitation that we already mentioned is there is no service-to-service connection. Like, really? We asked this question to Microsoft multiple times, and where they definitely said that the business events will become GA, but for the managed service authentication, there was nothing for now. Yep. I think this is probably a slightly bigger change, because Business Central standard connector is widely used, and certain feature would be harder to implement for them.
And there's a BC idea about the service-to-service authentication, and if you can, please go and vote for that, and then they will be able to put that into the actual workload. Right now, it's in the backlog.
Yep. So another limitation that we see is, as from a development standpoint, it's a little bit tricky. Because yes, as Tharanga showed you before, you can use these fancy drop-downs to select your environment, company, and API, but probably in real-time scenario, you do need to use like environment variables for all this. And for example, when we're talking about like an update record connector, if I will start like changing something, let's say, okay, I actually want this to be a dynamic content. Where is it? No. This modern one. Should I switch to the classic? Yeah. As I said, starting point for everything. Change to classic. Can you keep it classic? No? Come on. Yes. Let me try to change environment. And I will put some environment variable for this.
You can type something else. Just type it. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my, that's definitely something wrong. So we have seen this as, yes, it's for like a low-code guy who wants to do something for a particular company, but if you wanted to try to squeeze anything out of it meaningful, you might have an issues like this.
Yeah, especially when you want to deploy this Power Automate as a solution to your environment, you can't parameterize it because all the actions work with the connector body. you can't actually write your custom code or custom parameterization with this. As soon as you start doing that, the connector and the actions goes out of shape, which is going to be a deal breaker for most of the integrations.
Yeah, so what I wanted to show you is we tried to do the same thing, but using standard HTTP and webhooks connections. And the reason for it is we wanted to use managed authentication. This connection do support managed authentication. We actually can declare an app for this. And we don't have these issues with mapping, goes out of shape, weird errors. You just do the mapping for HTTP call directly in your body. So first of all, I wanted to show you quickly, we had this app. Nice name, not sure where you get it. That represent our flow. Because of this webhook is so standard, it's fully supported with a standard connector. So you can see the definition of this webhook trigger is you need to define what is your subscribe endpoint. In our case, this external event subscription API. We pass in the body, the one that Tharanga was showing in the Postman. It has like a generic variable from the webhook trigger that basically, when you're enabling this, it generates every time a new callback URL. And then you do have an unsubscribe parameters as well. Where are they? Here. So you define in the endpoint, and you actually even able to extract this ID that you get when you call the subscribe endpoint. Because the way how it was working, you send a call, it returns you back a response with an ID of your subscription. So this unsubscribe should get this ID. And in PowerAutomate, using this connector, you do able to access this value to be able to call an unsubscribe one. And do all this weird thing with delete, passing this empty body to unsubscribe. It just works like this. And of course, this is where you're actually able to authenticate to these endpoints using the the OAuth and the service-to-service authentication. Cool, so that's for the webhook trigger. The rest is pretty straightforward. Yeah, we do use our PAPI API and the payload that we get from the webhook. The slightly difference from what you see in a connector is that the way it works is it's not sending you one event. If it can send you 20 events and the 20 event happens in certain point in time, it will send you all 20 events into the same endpoint. So the data set that you get on your side is actually like an array of events. So that's why on my side, I'm looping through them. I'm getting that appointment from Business Central API. I'm sending this to my service, getting back my appointment date, and then calling Business Central API again to update my data. So no limitations.
Yeah, so adding to that about the number of calls, if you trigger this particular external business event within like 20 times, let's say like a random number, 20 times within a very short period of time, you will see in the PowerAutomate flow, if you use the Business Central connector, that it has a 20 runs. But if you use this webhook method, you might only see one run. And within that one run, you will have a body that you have to loop through 20 times. So that's why Vlad had the for each loop. So you have to loop through that.
Yep. Yeah, so as a reference for these materials, we wanted to leave you with a link to a Business Central documentation. Be aware that you will see like this long setup that's not required at all. Another strong takeaway is you can use it in production, even the business events from Microsoft. This is what they commit. It's fully working, fully scalable. We tried it multiple times on a big scale. It's all deliver message as it promised. And yeah, are you,
No, I'm
we
just
forgot to
making
publish the code.
Publish the code, yeah.
Yeah, so the code for the demo that we did is on GitHub, so please go check it out. And hopefully
We'll go to the
slightly
Q&A.
help you to do some integrations. So now the questions.
And unfortunately, we don't have the T-shirts because they ran out. Okay, because I'm publishing I'll do that quickly.
Code? Sorry. Oh, yeah, both. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Tharanga, please fix. Any questions that fix?
Which one?
Like a question.
Okay,
the QR codes are the same.
Yep.
We at least make one fail. Oh.
I think the external business events, there's a protocol that you showed us.
Sorry.
There's a protocol for the external business events you showed us.
Protocol?
Like how many retries and if it was successfully or it failed. Is there like a config or setup for it so that we can define a maximum of retries?
Oh, okay. We didn't experiment with retries, but I think that, how many of them was?
19 times. That's the maximum I have seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there is no setup for this. And there is no setup in definition of the business event, so it's just a platform thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. No T-shirt, sorry. Really, we were sad about this as well. Oh, cool.
Thank you. Is there a way, when you make the event subscription, to pass along something to be used as a header or something, like a subscription key that can be passed along in the callback?
No, unfortunately not. Basically, the subscription is you just pass in the notification URL. But what you can do is probably within your notification URL, it's accept any URL. So you can encode like in a query of the URL some parameters. So then your backend will get it with some metadata that's specific for your subscription only. That's kind of an option for these parameters. Client state is not passed with an event.
I was.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's John.
Oh, that's cheating. Kick him with a mic.
I'm wondering if the record that calls that event can be traced back. Like, do I have a record ID of something in the notification? Like, which exact record that you inserted the appointment?
In our example, what we did was we actually passed in the system ID of that record. And then also in the URL. Yes.
But it's inside the body. I want to see it in a
Yeah,
list.
yeah. I think we probably need to double check this. It's a really good question. There should be, because like every notification that we get do have a unique ID. So I'm expecting actually that this would be in a payload as well.
Okay.
So then you can trace it back. But I will double check this, and probably after conference, I will find you.
You can message me on Teams.
There was a question from that side, I think. Yeah, and whoa!
Sorry. Almost there.
You're not a football player. Yes.
Why, when you subscribe to the business events, there is a version field for the event?
Yes. So my understanding that the versions is this kind of prototype of instrumentation for Microsoft in future to allow you to have like multiple definitions of the events.
Yeah.
We didn't see and I think we didn't show this in the metadata that we have, that the version one. This is currently an optional parameter, so you're not like mandatory to do this. And you will get like the version as we do, like 0.0. But you will see that Microsoft, all their business event, they do have a version.
But not for the partners. Yeah, we couldn't add the versions, but in Microsoft ones they had the version. So we are not actually sure how we can do that. We might have to check with Microsoft.
I thought it's an optional parameter. It's not.
Yeah, it's optional, but when we're creating it's not creating the event. Like when you're publishing the event to the tenant, we don't have option of creating that this is the version 2 or version 3. So need to find out how they do it.
Cool. There was someone else. Okay. New Zealand is like well known about like rugby players who can throw, but not we. We are.
And what about consuming external system Webhooks from Business Central? Because here this is external system that consume Business Central Webhook, but maybe we want Business Central to interact with external Webhook. So how to publish a hook URL to send to this Webhook?
Yeah, so if I understand the question correctly, you're talking about that the Business Central is interested in some webhook somewhere else, and you wanted to react on it. That is not possible.
And
primarily because all the API in Business Central has an authentication. You can see these notification endpoints, they are notification free, so there is no anything that you can enforce external service to like authenticate. Again, if you're using the normal subscription. Of course, this is where we're talking about some kind of layer in the middle that can subscribe using webhooks or wherever, and then just use a Business Central API to communicate back this information to Business Central. Cool. Oh.
Can we pass it? Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it.
So the webhook thing looked like a one-way thing to me.
Yep.
So what happens, for example, in Power Automate, we have an error. So how do we tell Business Central we got an error here?
Yeah, so you're done.
Perfect.
So the webhook, the protocol is defined in a way that you receive, you accept. So you need to, like wherever service handling the webhook, it needs to accept acknowledgement, so-called, meaning that I get it. How I get it, it's not your problem. And the only thing what Business Central will do, it will retry if you will not return 200. It will start bombarding you with retries. But it doesn't care if like eventually you're done.
Yeah,
like
it doesn't care whether that you handle it or not. It's simply passing the payload saying that there's something happened in my system, take it, do whatever you want. If you fail in the other system, Business Central doesn't need to know about whether it's failed or not.
Yeah, so this is from an architecture point of view, you need to make sure that this is two decoupled system. They live independently. You can say that, okay, I'm expecting something from external service, but it's up to them to handle it. And potentially you would need to have a certain instrumentation maybe to follow up on it, or maybe external service can go and inform a user something happens. Some pattern that some of our teams using is basically you sometimes send a notification that something is done, or again, the error handling instrumentation, wherever you use, is reporting back that the integration is failed. Yep, oh, we had.
I come there.
That's far.
We actually, whoa!
Oh, that's nice.
This is a guy who definitely needs a ticket to New Zealand.
I can't catch. So regarding that, can we use telemetry on the Power Automate end to log these kinds of things, so we can and the same application inside space, so we can correlate these events better?
This is probably no for Power Automate, but yes for Logica.
Yeah, that's
because
another
in Power
reason for
Automate,
using Logic app, yes.
Yeah, you do have really limited access to actual subscription calls. And even for this one, for this demo, I like spend an hour try to understand how to extract this response ID from a subscription, from a subscribe call to unsubscribe. And like there's no documentation for it. So hopefully, thanks to certain ideas from Gemini and some limited one, I managed to get it. But yeah, it's hard to trace, especially with the Power Automate. Absolutely different story for the Logic app.
Yeah, you get the full control over what are the telemetries that you want to pass, and then on top of that, you can do the monitoring as well. So it's really good.
Cool. No
Is
more
there any other questions?
Good.
No? Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being on the BC Tech Days. That's the last session. Hopefully you will be joining the closing one. Thank you.